in our own galaxy, this is the Milky Way here diagrammed. Remember, it's not a real picture here, but it's meant to show what it would look like if you could fly way back. And if this is us somewhere over here, let's just say, in our Milky Way galaxy, if this is us, well, within around 60 light years of us, there's more than 4,500 stars. And of those stars, now we've been sending out lots of signals to them. We've been sending out TV signals and radio signals. So although we're sending out our own signals, there may be aliens who have been sending signals to us. Maybe they've been listening to us, first of all, and maybe they've been sending out signals back. So there may be aliens sending out signals to us. So the question is, can we hear them? So this is our goal, right? We're trying to sort of listen in, to things in our little neighborhood here. In fact, it's way smaller than that. But we're attempting to actually point our telescopes and our efforts at listening in to detect, hey, are there other intelligent beings out there? Are they maybe sending signals to us? So that's the whole idea behind this. So humans are actually listening. There are people doing this. There are lots of other teams well, there's not lots, there's only a few, but one of the main ones is called SETI. So I'm going to talk about that one. So I'm going to write it down like this because it's an acronym, SETI. And it stands for the search. There's a little sort of for extraterrestrial intelligence. That's what SETI stands for. Okay, that's the letters here. S-E-T-I. SETI. Maybe I'll undo that. That just confuses. There you go. So SETI. Now, what's really nice about it, this is we're looking for signals. We're looking for evidence of intelligent beings that are not from Earth. Remember, that's what extraterrestrial. That just means not from Earth. So this could be in our own solar system, although they're certainly not talking to us if there's anything intelligent around. But extraterrestrial, remember, extra means other than, and terrestrial means Earth, so other than Earth. So we're searching for intelligence that's other than Earth. And we don't care who, right? We're just trying to find out, are there others out there? This is a very good way to answer this question, are we alone in the universe? So what does SETI do? Well, they're trying to detect evidence of intelligent life. Now, they do it in a number of ways. They're trying to sort of listen for signals from intelligent civilizations, but listen is not a good word for it. They're trying to detect is a better word, right? Now, how do we do things? Well, we look for things that are not seen in nature. We're trying to look for technological artifacts. Okay, so they're trying to look for things. Maybe I'll write that down. So we're trying to look for things not seen in nature. That's the key thing here. Things that are not explained by natural phenomenon. And we're hoping that it's organized. Maybe they're actually sending us a signal like hi or something. Maybe it's encoded. Maybe they send us a TV signal or something. I'm not sure. But the idea is we're trying to detect things that are not seen in nature and that seem like they're from something intelligent. Now, how will we devise or detect if it's really intelligent or not? Well, I suppose it's going to depend on the signal. So once we get a signal, then we'll figure out what to do. Now, most people think that SETI only does radio, but actually they also look into things in the optical spectrum. So here what they're trying to do, they're trying to detect very bright pulses, maybe flashes or something from some sort of alien or advanced civilization. Maybe they make a laser or something. So maybe they communicate with each other via lasers. So we're looking for really short, sort of nanosecond, which is extremely short, nanosecond pulses. Because we make pulses like this with our own lasers, so we figure, hey, if there's other civilizations out there, maybe they can also do the same thing as us, or even greater, right? So we're trying to look for, pulses maybe, or things that are at least not seen in nature. Now, why did I put this picture there? This is an example of one of our telescopes in South America that is actually shining a laser beam up, and it's not trying to shoot aliens or anything. They actually use this laser beam here in order to try to basically untwinkle the stars. They try to sort of correct for the effects of the atmosphere on our own Earth. Because what happens is the really nice light coming in from the stars and things like that gets all distorted by our own atmosphere. So it makes it really fuzzy. And the only solution before would be to take your telescope, put it in space, but it's extremely expensive. So there's another way around it, and that's if you shoot these special kinds of lasers, then you have a set of mirrors that can actually detect how much the laser beam, because what it does is it shines in the upper atmosphere, and those give you a little dot, and then they can take that dot and look at it carefully, and basically they move their own mirror around, so that way they can sort of untwinkle the stars. It's really cool. It's called adaptive optics. But here we really are shining a laser beam up into the sky. Now, it's not to shoot anyone, it's actually to make a better picture, believe it or not. But we're trying to detect aliens maybe doing this. Maybe they're sending laser beams up in different directions. So we're trying to detect optical things, so things we can see with the human eye, for example, or at least with our own detectors, but that are in sort of those types of colors. But we're also, SETI is also trying to detect radio signals. So things like, one specific radio channel. So here, that's really what they're trying to look for. It's like, let's say they're looking for one specific radio channel. That's really what they're sort of hoping to find. Now, some people have asked, why in the world are they looking at radio? Why not something else? Well, it turns out there's a couple of reasons for it. And this right here is sort of the frequency of the light. Now, you don't have to worry so much about these numbers and things like that, but I'm sure you can understand it. This is a logarithmic scale, so it looks a bit weird here, but basically this just tells you something about the color of the light or the type of light. So optical things would have been in a very different sort of color or a different value of frequency, but there exists this window, and this is the idea here, is that they try to look somewhere between sort of here and here, so somewhere between these sort of frequencies or colors. They look at these. And the reason they do that is because anything lower than that, there's actually too much extra sort of junk from the galaxy, for example. Our own galaxy has a lot of extra light here. So if you're trying to look over here, the galaxy is going to screw it all up. So you want sort of a window. And over here, this is actually all sorts of interesting things happening because of our atmosphere. So our own atmosphere is messing up the light. So we're trying to look for somewhere where our own atmosphere doesn't screw it up so much and our own galaxy doesn't screw it up so much. And it turns out there's a nice little window right here. And in fact, that window corresponds to places where there's these interesting transitions that happen with hydrogen atom. And we figure that if there are alien beings and they're interested in atomic physics like we are, they'd also be interested in this particular one. So if we search for, around here, then maybe that's one good way of doing it. Now, SETI does a lot of really other cool things, but I'm just explaining one small subset of what they do. So they're, again, trying to detect signals. So they're hoping that maybe aliens are sending out radio signals. Maybe they're talking to each other. And I think that's really, really interesting. Now, you might say, well, why don't we use other colors or other types of signals? Well, that's because we don't know of anything better yet. Right now, why not zeta rays or something? That's actually what I heard Jill Tarter say. She's one of the influential people at SETI, for example. And I loved how she said it, like, why not zeta rays? Well, that's because we haven't detected zeta rays yet. We don't know what those actually are. We've never heard of zeta rays before. So just saying that, some unknown type of color or unknown type of signal, well, we won't know about them till we know about that type of signal. So we're looking for things that we know about, so that way we could actually detect it. Maybe one day we do realize what zeta rays actually are, and maybe we start thinking, hey, those are really good for communicating. Or then maybe we'll start listening in on, the rest of the galaxy for these types of signals. But for the moment, we're doing the best we can. And we're using technology. See, we're trying to detect alien technology. And we're using alien technology as a proxy for intelligence. See, we're assuming that if you're an intelligent culture and you're using technology, sorry, I've said it wrong. We're assuming that if you're using technology, then you must be intelligent. So that's sort of what we're hoping there. We're saying that, radio, let's say they emit with radio, that implies intelligence. But keep in mind, there is something missing from this, because it doesn't necessarily mean that all intelligent things use radio. Not necessarily, no. Maybe you're an intelligent being and you don't use radio. We haven't been using radio for very long as a species. And yet, we've been intelligent for a while. So intelligence leading to radio, not really. But if we detect some sort of technological signal, we're assuming that implies that these are intelligent beings. So we're using this as a proxy. I mean, we're doing the best we can, right, with what we have. Now, what does SETI use? They use a number of detectors. One of them is the Allen Telescope Array, and that's located in Hat Creek, California. It's kind of cool. It has all these little mini telescopes here. They're hoping to build a lot more, but they've had some issues with funding. They were actually turned off for a few months, but now they're back online as far as I can see. So it seems like they're back up. But I mean, if anybody has lots of money, please give it to them. These guys are doing awesome research here. So these guys are they're actually trying to find aliens. How cool is that? Now, there have been some early success claims in having contact with aliens. Now, these are not people from SETI. These are just, early success here. So there's a guy named Nikola Tesla. He's famous for a lot of other reasons. But around 1901 in Colorado Springs, he had this really big, I think it was 60 meters tall, this big induction tower. And they were trying to use that to transmit electricity. It's called a Tesla coil. But anyway, he picked up a lot of electrical disturbances, and he actually assumed that it was, signals that were coming from some sort of alien intelligence. Now, this picture is actually kind of cool. It's actually not a real picture in a sense. It's a composite. So this is one of his devices that he made, sending out these huge sparks. But so they actually took that picture, and then what they did through a bit of sort of this is pre-Photoshop trickery, but they took another picture when they didn't have the machine on of him sitting there looking all relaxed, and they put the two together. I mean, this is pretty advanced sort of photo editing, I guess, from the time. But basically, they made it seem like, he's just super relaxed dude, doing all this crazy stuff here. But, I mean, he did claim that he talked to, or at least he was listening to alien signals, but it doesn't seem likely. Likely he was just listening to some phenomenon in the atmosphere. Another early success claim, well, not necessarily claim, but something that's interesting, was Marconi and friends. So there's he's known for being one of the fathers of radio, for example. But around 1924, the planet Mars was getting pretty close to Earth. And him and some other scientists actually thought, you know what, the aliens that are living on Mars, they're probably going to try to talk to us. So when we get close to Mars, so when Mars is at its sort of closest in orbit to Earth, then let's listen in really carefully. So this is actually a real telegram that was sent by the U.S. military in 1924, and they're actually saying that, the Navy desires to cooperate with astronomers who believe that, Mars may attempt communication by radio waves with us. And so, as they talk about what they want to do and when to do it. But isn't that interesting that, even the American military at the time was like, oh yeah, let's all shut up with our own detectors because let's listen in for the Martians who are probably going to talk to us. Too bad they didn't actually detect anything, but there you go. That's how it is. Now, there are no results yet with SETI. So with this search for extraterrestrial intelligence, there haven't been any results yet. Well, no positive results at least. There have been some close calls, some things that they thought might be. There's a famous thing called the WOW signal. You can maybe look that up. So that was something that, they thought, oh, maybe that's something. But there have been some other sort of close calls, things that they thought might be an alien communication, but it turns out either it wasn't repeated again, which was the case with a lot of these ones, or it was something that eventually was explained away. But these guys have really good protocols now for checking that it's not just a satellite or not just something else. So they check quite carefully before they get excited about things now, because they're really good at what they do. What I thought you might like to know is that we even tried to send out a strong signal to aliens. Now, here's the problem with this is that, of course, we are sending out signals in all directions. I mean, on Earth, this is us. We're actually sending out, these signals. We're sending out sort of radio waves in all directions and TV and things like that all the time. But they're very weak. But what you could do is if you use a big, powerful telescope like this huge one in Puerto Rico, it's called the Arecibo telescope. So it's Arecibo, Arecibo. That particular telescope, maybe I'll put it here so you can read it better. That one they used to send a really strong signal in 1974. What they did then is they sent a 3-minute, really powerful burst. And they sent it at a place called M13. It's actually a globular cluster, so it's a place with hundreds of thousands of stars, but it's actually really far away, so it's not likely ever going to get there, and even if it does, it probably moves out of the way first, but it was just a way to show that we have the technology to do it. They sent this burst, and what they did, they encoded a message in this burst of, this burst of signal here, and what they did, they encoded a message that could be re-put together by aliens, hopefully, that looks like this. And the idea was that, it would show you the diameter of the telescope, and then this here would tell you about the sun, and that the third place from the sun, that's the Earth, that's where we are, and these are the other planets. And it also gives an idea about their size, or mass. It tells us something about, what a human is like, and then they tell us about the DNA structure. And over here they had a whole bunch of, sugars and bases and things and nucleotides of DNA. And then they had, the atomic numbers for hydrogen and carbon and things like that. And then they had, the numbers 1 through 10 as we do it. So they tried to give aliens an idea of what we're like. Now, they're not likely to ever reach this, because if there even are aliens, this is really, really far away. But it just gives an idea that we can actually send directed pulses of energy. So that's actually pretty interesting. And finally, SETI has a program that they've been doing it for a while now. They actually started it in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's still running. It's called SETI at Home. And what they've done is, because they have so much data coming in, because they're not just checking. It's not like one person sitting at a telescope listening. They've got automated systems that check, lots and lots, hundreds and thousands of channels simultaneously. They're trying to detect things. But the problem is that requires a lot of computer program energy, I guess you could say, or it's very computer intensive. So you need some serious number crunching to sort of go through all the data that they get. So what they did, they developed this thing called SETI at Home, and you can actually sign up with them. So there's their webpage. And what you can do then is you can agree to have, as your screensaver, for example. So whenever your computer is sort of sleeping, your computer then does some number crunching for them. So that's one of the ways you can actually help them to sort of decipher through the data. So it's actually a pretty cool program.